Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we're tackling a number of very common issues that you might have around your home, like, can I paint over wallpaper? We get that question all the time. We'll tell you what's involved if you decide to go that route. Also, mold and mildew. You buy vinyl and you put it on the outside of your house like a vinyl post, and you're still battling mold and mildew. We'll tell you what to do. Also, we'll be checking in with Chelsea, who's always got something going on, and she'll share with you something that you might not think about and how to make that air conditioning system look a little better out in the yard. And poison ivy, nobody wants that around. We'll give you 5 different ways of getting rid of poison ivy if it's bothering you.
And autumn is a great time of year to plant a tree. And for my simple solution this week, I'm going to share 5 tree planting tips to ensure that tree grows happy and healthy.
Should be a good podcast. Let's get started. Right now, we're going to jump over to Michigan. Leanne is on the phone right now, and welcome to the show.
Hi there, how you doing?
Hey, we're doing great. Tell us about this project you have in mind here. This is probably something a lot of people have pondered themselves.
All right, now I have a 1983 mobile trailer, and it has wallpaper on it. And I was wondering if I could paint over that wallpaper instead of pulling it off, because I tried a little piece of it. It was taking the panel, I guess paneling off of it too.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, a lot of times in a manufactured home like that, you actually, it's a different kind of wallpaper. It's actually wall board that is, embedded and made into the actual material. Leanne, do you have little strips on that run vertically every 4 feet?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll tell you what, my mother and father decided to move into a large double wide. It was a pretty impressive place there. When you think of manufactured housing, you might not realize how fancy they've gotten. But they had that exact same thing, and after a few years, they got a little tired of it. And I'll tell you, they pulled those strips down, and they had someone put joint compound in there, took 2 coats, lightly sanded it, then they primed it with a bonding primer, and then they painted it, and I'll tell you, it looked good for many, many years, and different than some vinyl wallpaper that sometimes is very hard to get paint to adhere to. The material that was in their particular home, the paint adhered to it very well, and it just completely changed the look at it, because wallpaper, regardless of the pattern of it, can make a room feel a little busy and a little smaller. The light color they painted, boy, it just made the room look a lot larger. So, yes, the answer is yes, you definitely can paint over that and do so with real professional results.
Well, good to know. Good to know.
So just a little bit of a drywall compound in those vertical cracks, and you're ready to go. Probably want to, I would suggest if you do it or have someone else do it, use at least a 1/2-inch nap roller when you're rolling it. That way it gives it not a lot of texture, but just a little character instead of it being perfectly smooth like it is right now. I think you'll see that that will hide some of the defects and end up with a real good results. But thanks so much, Leanne, for being a part of the show with us here on today's Homeowner. Joe, that. Are you familiar with that, Joe? That type of material that's
Sure.
in a lot of the manufactured homes.
Yeah, it's typically either plywood or masonite that has the board itself, 1/4 inch at most. Mm-hmm. And those strips, they hide those vertical seams. And yeah, if you don't just paint them, which I guess is another option. But if you want it to look like a painted wall, why would it have vertical strips on it? So
right.
You would have to remove that. And if anyone has vinyl wallpaper, most relatively new wallpaper is strippable, so I would probably try stripping it off. If it comes off easily, then that's your best option. But yeah, you can paint vinyl wallpaper. You just have to get the correct primer. First, you have to clean it really well, like any surface, and then prime it well with a primer that will bond to vinyl. And there are primers that do that. And then you can paint it with pretty much any normal, interior paint.
Sure. Just a few weeks ago, we were talking about that special wallpaper remover formula
That's right.
that we came across from one of our friends in the industry. And we have that online at today'shomeowner.com. Just go online there at today'shomeowner.com and in our search engine, put in removing wallpaper, and you'll see this really interesting formula that it has wallpaper remover concentrate in it. But in addition to that, it has things like vinegar, it has fabric softener, and all of those different chemicals, have a reason for that. And Joe, if you'll remember on that, we used one of the little paper tigers
Right.
to create those thousands of little tiny microscopic holes throughout the face of the vinyl. Then we applied this material with a pump-up sprayer. Then with it wet, put that lightweight plastic that just stuck to the wall, and that was it. Next morning, it was amazing how easy it was to just take that off. It kind of, cooks it or whatever. It basically is what you're trying to do is release that glue off of it. And boy, did it ever work well. And it saved a whole lot of time and energy there.
Yeah, that's why that paper tiger, which if you're not familiar with it, looks like a little round handle, and on the other side are, I think, 3 or 4 wheels with little spikes on it, and you just roll it around the wall in any fashion, any pattern, and it perforates the paper. It cuts just deep enough to make these little puncture marks in it, and that allows the wallpaper remover, to soak behind the wall, because obviously with some wallpaper, especially vinyl, won't get behind it otherwise. And then when you put the lightweight plastic, and we're talking about, it's usually like 0.75 mil, if you can imagine that. I mean, it's so thin, it almost doesn't even exist, and it's super affordable. But that's so lightweight, it will just stick to the wet wallpaper. Once you stick that on there, and that bakes it in there. It holds that, keeps it from evaporating is all it does. So, that's a trick. And then, then that's about it. If it doesn't come off then you really have to start scraping. But I've never seen that not work.
Right now, one of the busiest ladies in the Southeast, Chelsea Lipford-Wolf, joins us to talk about checking in with Chelsea. Hello, Chelsea.
Hi, how are y'all doing today?
We're great, thanks.
We're doing well. So I know that you're very, very busy with all the plans on the Chelsea Ranch revival. But what else is going on in the Checking In with Chelsea world?
Well, I have so much interest in my new home that we're starting at the very beginning, and I shared a video. It's like a before tour, before we even moved into the house. It's a video of all the rooms in our home, so you can kind of get a feel for the layout, and you can just kind of see and dream up some possibilities of your own of what we're going to do. So that is my latest video at checkinginwithchelsea.com.
Well, I think one of the things you could consider is the excellent tour that your oldest daughter, Mary Helen, gave Joe a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
And,
a personal tour. I like that a lot.
Seeing the eyes through a little girl like that, it was a different kind of tour. It was cute and a lot of fun.
We should have recorded it.
Yeah, Chelsea, she showed me the entire house except her brother's room. She was not interested at all in Gus's room. We walked by that, and I said, "Oh, what's this?" And Danny had to go in and show me Gus's room. Mary Helen had no interest in that.
Nothing to do with that.
No, she was very excited about the curtain you hung to separate her bed from Lucy Ann's bed. So she was very excited about that.
So the girls are sharing a room, so we had to make it feel like 2 rooms so that the baby would sleep better.
Well, tell us what else is going on with Checking In with Chelsea. Of course, everybody knows that it's a very popular website and blog, and a lot of things there going on Instagram. But what's some of the more recent content that you posted?
Well, I have, I'm working, creating a screen for your air conditioning unit. Mm-hmm. So there's a post on that about building a trellis or like lattice panels to just kind of conceal your air conditioning unit. So I made checkerboard lattice. Joe, do they have that up in New England up your way?
I'm not sure is it just with the square holes as opposed to diagonal?
Yeah, it's square as opposed to diagonal. Exactly.
Yes, we have both types.
Okay. It just has a little more character to it, but that's what
Sure.
I have a post about, the step-by-step of building a panel to hide your air conditioning unit, especially if you have one like near a back patio and you just want to kind of tuck it in there a little bit and make it look more attractive for your friends and family.
Well, not only with using the checkerboard lattice there to kind of hide it a little bit, boy, putting any kind of greenery in front of it, vines that can climb up and use it as a trellis, can also knock down some of that sound when you're out on the patio
Right.
enjoying it.
Yeah, and one of the tips I give is to create it or build it 24 inches out from the unit so that anyone servicing your unit has room, but also it still has room to get any air intake that it needs.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You don't want to hinder that at all. So, well, we certainly are going to be airing the first show of Chelsea's Ranch Revival in November. We'll keep you posted on exactly when it will air. And that basically was a show where we did just the bare essentials in order to get Chelsea and her family moved in. And Chelsea, you and I have talked a lot about how good it is when you have the opportunity before you do an extensive remodeling to live in the space and just see how you're going to, how you're going to actually live in it. Is that master bedroom going to stay there, or are you going to reposition it? How are the closets? Those type of things. I'm sure you're realizing already the benefits of doing it the way you're doing it.
Oh, yeah, and it just gives you more of an opportunity to come up with different or better ideas than what you were originally planning just from, walking through it once or twice before you buy a house. So I'm glad that we're mulling it over while we live here.
And Joe, it's quite a phenomenon when she gets real sweet sometimes, and she's, "Hey, Dad, would you like some lunch?" and this kind of thing. And then I know it's coming. It's coming. Dad, could you drop by and fix a garage door? Can you drop? Which it's okay.
Still waiting on that one.
Your house is done. You've got nothing else to do. You drop by Chelsea's.
Exactly, Joe. You get it.
Yeah, hey, Chelsea, what I'm most interested in seeing with all the projects going on is your kitchen when it's done, because it's a nice big space you're working with for the most part. I don't think you have to enlarge it any, but there's a lot of pine in there from what I remember, right? And I assume you're going to be replacing all of that, yeah.
Yes, a lot of pine cabinets and just, old-fashioned looking a little bit, and so modernizing it with some fresh cabinetry for sure. That's definitely on the list.
It's going to be great. It's going to be a great family home when you're done.
Thank you.
One of the things that's very exciting about the whole Chelsea Ranch Revival is so many of the projects are very common projects that you might be considering at your house. The hallway bathroom, the master bathroom, energy efficiency, making your home more energy efficient and smarter with more of smart home devices, as well as a tremendous kitchen. All of that, keep in touch and make sure that you check out checkinginwithchelsea.com anytime. Hey, right now we're going to Illinois with a longtime listener of the Today's Homeowner Radio Show. Dennis joins us. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Danny, thank you so much for taking my call. I've told your people that work there with you how excited I am to talk to you and Joe, and give my regards to Chelsea. She's really come into her own on this deal, and it's just a real honor to be able to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate that. We have a lot of fun doing all the things we do, and I'm glad to hear some feedback like that, and hope that we can help you with your challenge you have there at your house.
Well, I hope you can too, but if you can, it's been worth it anyway.
Okay.
We have a ranch-style home. It was pretty plain in the front, so a few years back, we had a really nice porch built onto the front. Man, it really added a completely new dimension to the house. It's just, people drive by now and don't even know it's a new porch. They think, well, it had to be built that way. It's perfect. The problem I'm having here, the last year or two, we've noticed it on the support posts. I think they're colonial support posts, about 8 feet long, and they are vinyl. And I've got what looks to be mildew on these posts. I've tried everything. I've tried different types of detergent. I've tried bleach. I've tried Jomax. I even tried to use some real fine sandpaper, hoping perhaps to be able to erase these black, they're just little tiny black dots, but as they grow together, they're becoming much more noticeable, and they're starting to look kind of bad. Now, this is not the posts themselves are not a real smooth, glossy finish like the rest of the newel posts and the rails are. It's a kind of a flat finish. It's got a really fine texture on it, and I just have not found out anything that will take this what appears to me to be mildew spots off of this vinyl. Got any ideas?
Well, I'll tell you, before you do anything drastic, I would try a couple more cleaning measures. Something that we recommend a lot and that we use a lot is oxygen bleach. So you could use to try that. There's a OxyClean and a number of those that are available now. I would try that. Joe, you also mentioned on several shows before about a product that's guaranteed to kill all of the mold and mildew instantly. What was it?
Yeah, Dennis, there's a product. It's a professional grade product. It's from a company called RMR. I'm not sure what that stands for.
RMR.
Yeah,
okay.
like Roger Maris Roger, being a Yankee fan.
Yeah, 61 home runs.
That's
know.
right. So it's called RMR 86 Pro Instant Mold Stain Remover.
RMR 8612.
No, just 86 Pro, like professional.
86 Pro.
Instant
okay,
mold
mildew stain remover.
Yeah, mold stain remover. Now it's not cheap; it's about $30 a gallon, but that I think would work. But backing up one step, I agree with Danny. I would try the oxygen bleach first. A lot of times, chlorine bleach won't kill mold and mildew deep enough because it evaporates so quickly.
Okay.
The nice thing about oxygen bleach, first you mix it with hot water or warm water so that it dissolves really quickly, and mix it to a pretty strong solution, and then you can apply it with a brush or a rag or whatever, and it won't stain your clothes, and it's pretty mild as far as being acidic. So I would try the oxygen bleach first, and if that doesn't work, then you could try the RMR 86 Pro.
Okay, is the RMR 86 Pro available commercially? I mean,
Yeah.
like at Menards, Home Depot, something like
Yeah,
that?
you could probably find it at home. I mean, you can always order online if you can't, but I think their product lines are available at home centers. Now, whether they carry that specific product or not, I'm not sure. But if they carry anything from RMR, they would be able to order that for you. And by the way, you mentioned that the surface of the vinyl isn't really smooth and shiny and slick. And that's part of the reason you're having a problem, because any little bit of texture creates a perfect environment for mold or mildew to start growing in the first place.
Right. I have used Jomax successfully on a lot of things like vinyl siding, things like that, and it really does, or even painted surfaces, really works well. But in this case, it just doesn't seem to be able to penetrate the outer layer or get in the tiny little pores that in this vinyl. So those two suggestions I will try.
Okay. Now, this is, of course, we're assuming that this is a correct diagnosis and it is indeed mold or mildew. It certainly sounds like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else it would be. I'm not that familiar with other types of fungus or whatever it may be, but they're just. I don't think it's environmental dirt because there's such tiny little black spots, and it's only coming up in just little places. And then, like I said earlier, they kind of grow together over time to create a bigger place, and it's visible now from several feet away. So I'm looking for a way. Now, would you think those products would also, another place that we've got some problem with? I think this is just environmental dirt. We had replacement windows put in our home quite a few years back. We used white silicone caulk all around all of them, of course, and now that is just absolutely filthy. And that's a situation also where I know caulk like that is fairly porous. And I can see how environmental dirt or anything else could get in there and just. I guess it would be worth trying that on there too. Otherwise, you're going to have to cut it all out and start over.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. The dirt is just on the caulk, not on the windows themselves.
Right, yeah, just on the caulk.
I think Dennis, our engineer, wants to chime in.
I just looked up RMR. They have it at Home Depot.
Oh, great.
Home Depot.
Good.
Okay. Great.
Good. Well, and another thing you might think about, Dennis, if worse comes to worse, you can successfully paint these vinyl posts and encapsulate anything that's there. Now, this is assuming that there's not a moisture issue inside the columns that are allowing this to migrate out, that it's something that's been trapped in the manufacturing process or since they've been up there. But to lightly sand them, and I know it's contrary when you think about painting vinyl, hey, I got vinyl so that I wouldn't have to paint, but you can paint it very successfully by lightly sanding, putting a bonding primer on it, putting 2 coats of a high-quality acrylic latex, and I'll tell you what, it'll hold up for just about forever. And then just as an extra layer of precautions, using a M1 mildewcide additive, adding that to the paint, then you're throwing all of the barriers at it to keep that from happening. So several different things that you can try. I'm certainly glad we were able to have you on the radio show, and join us us again sometimes, why don't you?
Okay, thank you very much, and God bless you guys.
Right now, we're going to go right back to the phone line. Susan is joining us from New Hampshire. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny, and thank you so much for taking my call. I love what you guys do, your radio and your TV shows. Thank you.
Good, I
thank
appreciate
you.
that. I appreciate it. But boy, I'll tell you, I've never really had a encounter very much with poison ivy. I don't know why, because I've been in the woods many, many times. But I hear you're having a little problem with it.
Yeah, so our driveway goes uphill, and it goes up quite a ways from the street, so we're elevated, our house in our yard and our driveway. And on the side of the driveway down by the street where nobody goes but me, because I do the gardening, and the poison ivy is just rampant right on the edge of the driveway. And I was wondering, I've gotten rid of it before, but I don't like to use, I won't name the brand, but different brands are chemicals and they're poisonous, and I was looking for a permanent solution to getting rid of poison ivy.
Well, Joe, what do you think? Should she just reach down there with her bare hand and just pull it up by the roots? Should she?
I was going to suggest she call you, and maybe you can swing up there. Since you seem to be immune to poison ivy, maybe you could just...
No,
Well,
I think we
Susan,
should try
yeah.
something different than that. What do you think?
Yeah, Susan, I live in Connecticut, just south of you, and I've been dealing with poison ivy my whole life, and I've got 6 solutions that you can try. Not any one will work, I don't think, all the time, but you can try. You may have tried some of these, but first, the absolute easiest way, not the easiest way, the surest way to get rid of it is, unfortunately, to pull it out by hand. There's no other way to do it. Now, obviously, that requires covering yourself from head to toe and everything. After you pull it all out, you have to get the roots out, and then you have to, either throw away everything you're wearing or wash it really well. Don't touch anything, because the reason you get poison ivy is because of the oil on the leaves. Another way to do it is to smother it, block out the light under almost anything, thick rubber sheets, cardboard, thick plastic. It would have to be black plastic, obviously, not clear plastic. So you could try smothering it. That's not always easy to do, depending, because it's not always in an open, flat area, but that's another way. You can pour boiling water on it. That'll kill it, but usually, poison ivy is pretty extensive, so it requires a lot of boiling water. And here's a homemade solution that will kill it as well. You mix 1 cup of salt, 1 tablespoon of liquid dish soap into 1 gallon of water, and you spray it on the plant. The salt will kill it, and the dish soap just helps it to stick. And I know you don't want to try spraying anything, but there is an herbicide I've used that works pretty well from Ortho, and it's called Ground Clear poison ivy killer. It's not a general purpose herbicide. It's specifically formulated for poison ivy. And the last thing I suggest is go out and get yourself a couple of goats. Goats apparently love, not very practical, but apparently they love poison ivy.
Yes.
So you can get a couple of goats and have them eat up your poison ivy. Now, I'm not sure what stops them from eating everything else on your property, so you might have to worry about that. But other than the goats, I think, one of those other 5 ideas, I mean, unless you talk to a poison ivy expert that can tell you something else, those are the only ones I know, the only methods I know that actually work.
Okay, great. Well, those all sound very doable and practical, and I'll try, one at a time and see what happens. And they sound all very, very good, and I really appreciate all you guys' help. So I'm so glad that you let me come through with my phone call and took my phone call for me. And I'll try all of those. That's very, very nice. Thank you. I didn't know any of those were good.
Good. Well, I think you'll find something that'll eliminate that, 'cause you need to stay away from, so that you don't have to use the calamine lotion. You want to avoid that if you can. So, well, that sounds great, Susan.
Right.
Well, hope you have a great weekend, and I hope one of these methods will solve that problem for you. Thanks so much for being with us.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care,
You're
guys,
welcome.
and keep up the great work.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Right now, let's shift gears, throw it over to my buddy Joe for another simple solution.
All right, Danny, before I get into this simple solution, I was reminded of a trick that wasn't really a simple solution, but we used to enjoy doing this. When you had mentioned earlier, if you have concrete floors, sometimes you can just take in a hose. You're kind of kidding. You can take a hose and just hose down the floor. Well, when I was a bachelor living with 2 of my buddies down in Coconut Grove, Florida, just south of Miami, we had terrazzo floors, which are kind of a concrete floor with a colored speckled finish to it. really very durable. I mean, almost indestructible. And we would have parties occasionally, like all the time. And the place was a bit messy the next morning, so we used to unscrew the threshold by the front door, hose down the inside of the house, and use the threshold as a squeegee to push all that dirty water right out of the house. It worked great. So for all those bachelors out there, you might want to try that. Okay, here's this week's simple solution: foolproof tree planting. Here are 5 quick tips for how to plant the tree to make sure it survives. The 2 most common mistakes are digging the hole too narrow or too deep. So it should be 2 or 3 times wider than the root ball, and you always want the root flare to be showing. So when you bury it, the root flare is the point where the root trunk meets and spreads out where it forms a root. So that's got to be showing above the dirt. So don't bury too deep. After you dig the hole, sprinkle in some superphosphate, just a handful into the bottom of the hole. Put the tree in place, remove the twine and any burlap, then use a 3-tine cultivator, one of those little fork tools, and really rake the root ball. You want to loosen up all those tiny roots and expose them so they can get a good head start. Then you just add some more superphosphate and some fertilizer to the dirt that you removed from the hole, rake it up together, dump it back in the hole, and then pack the dirt around very lightly. You don't want to stomp down the dirt because compacted soil does not absorb water. So that's a common mistake too. So don't pack the dirt too tightly around it. And then, of course, you just want to water it. And in this case, you cover it with bark mulch, then water it at least every day for about 6 or 8 weeks till it's fully established. So there you go, 5 quick tips to planting a tree.
There you go. And when you spend a little money on a large tree like that, you want to make sure that it is going to flourish in your yard. Another great, simple solution. Okay, now it's time for our podcast question of the week. This comes from Greg. My garage door opener, when pushing the remote control, the light will come on, the opener, but the motor intermittently comes on to move the door. What do you think is causing this strange behavior of my garage door opener? So, Joe, we're talking about pushing the remote control. The light will come on, but the motor just sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. What do you think that Greg should check on his motor there? Well,
we're assuming that mechanically it's installed correctly and the motor is not failing. The only other reason that I know that a garage door opener works intermittently, occasionally, how about that? Occasionally, is when there's when it's experiencing radio frequency interference, and I'm not sure what to do about that. I mean, because it could be caused by lots of nearby sources, such as a security light that has like an automatic on-off. If there's anybody in the area with a ham radio, could trigger it. Maybe even some other garage door openers in the neighborhood. But there's an easy way to determine if indeed the problem is from radio frequency interference. Take the remote control, the sort of portable one. If it only works when it's held close to the motor, like within a few feet of the motor, then it's probably being interfered with by some radio frequency. And the reason it works when you're close, because you're kind of overriding it. You're so close that the radio frequency isn't a problem. So that's the only thing Greg can try. If that doesn't solve the problem, then I think it's probably something mechanical. I don't know how old this garage door opener is, but if it's an older one, it might be the motor itself.
And it's also, putting fresh batteries in that remote can also be that. And you might even look at the contacts on that remote, maybe take a little emery board, kind of shine those up a little bit to make sure you're getting a good connection, because those remote controls get banged around a lot and they could have, partially dislodged the battery that's in it and that kind of thing. So I think just chasing down a few of these things will allow you to get that garage door opener working like it should, Greg. And also reprogramming those to different frequencies are also a possibility. You can go online and find out that reprogramming with the brand of garage door motor, and they can take you through that. Now, if you have a question for us, we would love to help you with the answer. And all you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast to submit your question. And as always, we appreciate the great reviews we're getting on the Today's Homeowner podcast. We're going to take some of the comments that we get and constantly try to improve it so that we're giving you the kind of information and the kind of podcast that you expect from Today's Homeowner. Hey, thanks so much for being with us this week. I'm Danny Lipford along with my buddy Joe Truini. We'll see you on next week's podcast.